Virgin man cared for the sick native girl with leaves and honey. That night she called him my chosen one. The blood on his hands wasn't his own. Nathaniel Cartwright had seen death before, but never like this. Never so close he could smell the copper tang mixing with sage and morning dew. The Cheyenne girl lay motionless beside the creek, her bronze skin pale as a winter moon. Her breathing was so shallow, he had to lean close just to feel the whisper of air from her lips. 3 arrows jutted from a nearby cottonwood tree. Cavalry arrows, the kind that meant trouble for anyone caught helping the wrong side. But Nathaniel wasn't thinking about sides when he lifted her into his arms. The nearest settlement was Copper Ridge, 2 days' ride south through territory that belonged to neither white man nor native. It was land that remembered violence, where the earth held secrets deeper than any mineshaft. He had been tracking a wounded deer when he found her. Now the deer was forgotten, bleeding out somewhere in the brush while he cradled something far more precious. She couldn't be more than 18. Her buckskin dress was torn at the shoulder, revealing a gash that ran from her collarbone to her breast. Fever radiated from her skin like heat from a branding iron. Her long black hair spilled over his forearm as he carried her toward his camp, each strand catching the morning light. Nathaniel had never touched a woman this way. At 35, he remained untouched by feminine hands, unmarked by feminine lips. The other men at the lumber mill back in Missouri had called him peculiar. His mother had called him particular. His father had called him a disappointment. But here in the Colorado wilderness, none of that mattered. Only the weight in his arms mattered. Only the shallow breathing against his chest. His camp sat tucked between 2 massive boulders, hidden from both cavalry patrols and the war parties that had been ranging through these hills since spring. A small fire crackled. Coffee was still warm in the tin pot. He laid her on his bedroll, the rough wool blanket suddenly seeming inadequate. Her breathing hitched, and she murmured something in a language he didn't recognize. The sound stirred something in his chest he'd never felt before. The wound was deep, but clean. No sign of infection yet, though the fever burned through her like wildfire. Nathaniel had patched up plenty of men, but this was different. This required a gentleness he wasn't sure he possessed. He tore strips from his spare shirt, boiled water, and cleaned the wound as carefully as he could. She stirred when the hot cloth touched her skin, her dark eyes fluttering open for just a moment. Eyes like deep water, like the bottom of a mountain lake where sunlight never reached. "Easy now," he whispered. "You're safe." Her eyes closed again, but not before he saw something in them he couldn't name. It might have been trust. It might have been terror. The fever worsened as the sun climbed higher. She thrashed against the blanket, speaking rapidly in her native tongue, crying out as if arguing with invisible spirits. By afternoon, he was desperate. That's when he remembered the old Ute man he'd met last winter, Joseph Many Horses. He had spoken of healing plants, of medicines the white man had forgotten. Wild mint grew thick along the creek. Honey came from a cache he discovered in a dead pine. He boiled the mint into a tea, mixing in honey until it was thick as syrup. He dripped the mixture onto her lips. She swallowed reflexively, some ancient instinct recognizing medicine. As evening painted the sky purple and gold, her fever finally broke. Nathaniel dozed fitfully beside the fire, jerking awake every time she stirred. Sometime after midnight, he felt her watching him. When he opened his eyes, she was sitting up, the blanket clutched to her chest, studying him with those deep water eyes. "You saved me," she said in accented English. The sound of her voice was soft and musical. "I found you hurt," he managed. "Couldn't leave you there." She touched the bandage at her shoulder. "The cavalry came to our camp. We scattered like rabbits. I fell from my horse." "Your people," he asked, "are they safe?" A shadow crossed her face. "Those who could run, ran. The rest—" She didn't finish. He understood. "What's your name?" he asked. "Ayanna. It means eternal blossom." "Nathaniel," he offered. "Just Nathaniel." She nodded solemnly. "You have gentle hands, Nathaniel. Most white men have hands like stones." Heat crept up his neck. He wasn't used to compliments. In the firelight, her skin seemed to glow. The torn shoulder of her dress had slipped lower. He forced himself to look away. You should rest. Why did you help me? She asked quietly. Your people and mine, we are not friends. He poked at the fire with a stick. How could he explain what he didn't understand himself? That something in her face had bypassed every rational thought in his head. Wasn't thinking about people, he said finally. Was thinking about you. My grandmother told stories about men like you, she said. White men with hearts that remember the old ways. Men who see people instead of colors. Don't know about all that. I just did what felt right. Ayanna lay back down but didn't close her eyes. In my tribe, when someone saves your life, they become responsible for it. You own my breath now, Nathaniel. The words sent a shiver through him. I don't want to own anything. No, she agreed. That's why my breath chose you. She slept then, finally peaceful, while Nathaniel sat and watched through the long hours until dawn. He told himself this was temporary. He'd help her find her people and return to his prospecting. But every time he looked at her face, he knew he was lying to himself. He had just saved her life, but he had no idea he'd just signed his own death warrant. When the sun rose, Ayanna woke with strength returning to her limbs. The pain is less, she announced. Your medicine worked. Wasn't my medicine. Was Ute knowledge. Joseph Many Horses taught me about mint and honey. Her eyes widened. You know Joseph, the storyteller? He is my mother's cousin. She smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. It transformed her face. Perhaps this meeting was meant to be. He felt the heat rise in his cheeks again. Don't know about meant to be. But I'm glad I found you. She studied his face. You are not like other white men I have known. How many white men have you known? Enough, she said, the smile fading. Traitors who cheat, soldiers who kill, men who take what they want and give nothing back. I'm not those men. No, she agreed. You are something different. Something pure. The way she said it made his breath catch. He'd been called many things, but never pure. They shared his breakfast of coffee and hardtack. Where will you go? He asked. North, to the winter camps in the high country. If any of my people survived, they will go there. That's 3 days hard travel. You're not strong enough yet. I am stronger than I look. Stronger than most, I'd say. But not stronger than these mountains in winter. A storm's coming. I can smell it on the wind. As if summoned, a gust of cold air swept down the canyon. Ayanna shivered. You could stay, Nathaniel said before he could stop himself. Until you're fully healed. Until the weather clears. She looked at him for a long moment. Would you want that? He had lived his entire life avoiding want, avoiding desire. But looking at Ayanna, wrapped in his blanket with morning light in her hair, he felt 35 years of careful restraint crumbling. Yes, he said simply. I would want that. Her smile returned. Then I will stay. For a little while. The first snowflakes began to fall as she spoke. In the high country, the passes would be closed soon. They would be sealed into this canyon until spring. He should have felt trapped. Instead, he felt something that might have been hope. The snow had trapped them together. A man who had never known a woman's touch, and a woman who had only known violence from his kind. The question was, would the winter kill them? Or would they kill each other first? The storm lasted 3 days. 3 days of sharing his small shelter, of learning the sound of her breathing, the way she hummed softly when she thought he wasn't listening. They talked. She told him of her childhood, of learning to ride before she could walk. He told her of the lumber camps, of the loneliness of cities, of the day he walked away from everything to look for gold. Why gold? She asked on the second night. Seemed like something a man could trust, something that wouldn't change or leave or die on you. But gold is cold, she pointed out. It cannot keep you warm. No, he agreed. But it can't hurt you either. Nothing that matters comes without the risk of hurt. Her words hung in the air like a challenge. He had built his life around avoiding hurt, and it had left him with nothing. On the third night, Ayana cried out in her sleep, thrashing against invisible enemies. Without thinking, he moved to her side, gathering her against his chest. She settled immediately. "Shh," he whispered into her hair. "You're safe. I've got you." In her sleep, she pressed closer, one hand fisting in his shirt. For the first time, Nathaniel understood what it meant to be needed. When morning came, she woke in his arms without surprise. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For chasing away the darkness." They lay there in the growing light, feeling the warmth that came from sharing breath. The days that followed took on a rhythm of their own. He checked his snares. She gathered what food the winter landscape offered. She was teaching him things no white man knew: how to read the weather and the birds, how to move through snow without leaving tracks. He, in turn, showed her how to maintain the rifle he'd given her. They were becoming a partnership. It was during the fourth week that everything changed. Nathaniel heard voices, English voices. He crept back to camp and saw them. 5 cavalry soldiers, picking through his things. Ayana was nowhere in sight. He circled wide. The soldiers were drinking his coffee, waiting. "She's here somewhere," one said. "Tracks don't lie." The sergeant, a hard-faced man, spat into the fire. "Standing orders are clear. Any Indian found off-reservation gets shot. Anyone helping them gets shot too." These weren't soldiers. They were executioners. A sound from above made them all look up. Ayana stood on the rim of the canyon 50 feet above their heads, his rifle in her hands. "You are not welcome here," she called down. The soldiers scrambled for their weapons. "I would not move too quickly," she advised. "This rifle shoots straight, and I have nothing left to lose." The sergeant raised his hand slowly. "Easy now, girl. Nobody has to get hurt. You killed my family. You burned my home. You have already hurt everything I cared about. You're outnumbered, girl, 5 to 1. Maybe, but you will still be dead." It was a standoff. The soldiers were spreading out looking for angles. In minutes they would have her. He had to choose. Safety lay in staying hidden, but that meant watching her die. Nathaniel stepped out from behind the boulder, his own rifle trained on the nearest soldier. "Actually, Sergeant, it's 5 to 2. The sudden appearance of a second gunman changed everything. They were caught in a crossfire. "Well, well," the sergeant said. "The white Indian lover shows himself." "Just a man protecting what's his," Nathaniel replied. "What's his?" The sergeant laughed. "Boy, you think you can own something like that? I don't own her, but I'll die before I let you hurt her." And in that moment, he realized it was true. Ayana had become more important to him than his own life. The youngest soldier broke first, going for his pistol. Nathaniel's rifle fired before the boy's gun cleared leather. The canyon exploded with gunfire. Another soldier went down, clutching his shoulder. The fight went out of the survivors quickly. Facing disciplined fire from 2 protected positions was more than their orders were worth. "This isn't over," the sergeant shouted as they dragged their wounded away. "We know where you are now. We'll be back." Nathaniel watched them go. He looked up to find Ayana climbing down from her perch. She walked straight to him, her dark eyes wide. "You stayed. You could have hidden, but you stayed. Told you I'd protect you. You risked your life for me. A white man risking his life for an Indian woman." She was standing very close now. She reached up and touched his face. "You are not like other men," she whispered. She rose on her toes, and her lips touched his. It was barely a kiss, but it hit Nathaniel like lightning. Every wall he had built around his heart crumbled. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "My chosen one," she whispered. He had kissed her. He had claimed her. But the soldiers knew where they were, and they were coming back with an army. That night everything was different. The kiss had changed the air between them. "They'll come back," Nathaniel said. "With a full troop. We can't stay here. Where can we go? The passes are still blocked." "There are places, hidden valleys. I know these mountains." Ayana nodded. Running again. Always running. Not running, he corrected. Moving. There's a difference. What difference? When you run, you leave things behind. When you move, you take what matters with you. She looked at him across the fire. And what matters, Nathaniel? He had been afraid to answer questions like that his whole life, afraid to name what mattered for fear of losing it. But fear seemed smaller now. You matter, he said simply. You matter more than anything. Her smile was like the sunrise. Then we will move together, wherever the trail leads. When it was time to sleep, they laid their bedrolls on opposite sides of the fire, as they always had. But Nathaniel could feel her watching him. Nathaniel. Her voice was soft. Are you afraid? He knew she wasn't talking about the soldiers. Yes, he admitted. Of what? Of caring too much, of not being enough, of losing you before I really have you. Come here, she said quietly. He rose and walked around the fire. She moved over on her bedroll, lifting the edge of the wool blanket in invitation. You don't have to be afraid alone, she said, as he settled beside her. Fear is lighter when shared. She was warm against his side, solid and real. Her head found the hollow of his shoulder. I have never, he began, unsure how to finish. I know, she said gently. It shows in the way you touch me, like I might break. You are precious, he said into her hair, more precious than gold. She lifted her head, her face inches from his. You speak like a man who has found treasure. I have found treasure. I found you. This time, when she kissed him, there was nothing hesitant about it. Her lips were warm and sure. He had imagined this moment, but his imagination had fallen far short of reality. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless, changed. My chosen one, she whispered again. Your chosen one, he agreed. They held each other through the long night. Tomorrow would bring new dangers. But tonight, they were home. Dawn came with the sound of distant horses. Time to go, Nathaniel whispered, shaking her awake. She came awake instantly, aware of the danger. How many? She asked, already rolling their supplies. 15, maybe 20. Too many to fight. They broke camp in minutes. The hidden trail he'd scouted began behind a screen of ice-covered brush. It climbed steeply up the canyon wall, a ledge barely wide enough for one person. In winter, it was nearly suicidal. It was their only chance. They started climbing as the first soldiers reached their abandoned camp below. Shouts of anger echoed off the walls. Tracks here, someone called. Leading up the north wall. Crazy bastards, another voice replied. Nobody climbs Devil's Backbone in winter. They climbed higher. Rifle fire cracked from below, bullets chipping stone near their feet. The path curved, and they were out of sight. They collapsed on a small platform carved from the rock, listening to the sounds of pursuit. They'll follow, Nathaniel said. Let them, Ayana replied. The path ahead gets worse. She was right. The trail descended into a maze of canyons and hidden valleys. They moved through a forest of stunted pines and emerged into a place Nathaniel had never seen. A valley stretched for miles, its floor green beneath the snow. A hot spring bubbled from the rocks, its steam rising like incense. This place, Ayana breathed. It is sacred. They made camp beside the spring. For the first time since the soldiers found them, they could truly rest. How did you know about this place? Ayana asked. I didn't. I just followed the trail and hoped. The trail knew where to lead you, she said. My grandmother always said the spirits guide the pure of heart to places of power. Been thinking, he said, staring into the steaming water, about what comes next. Spring. The passes will open. You could go north. Find your people. She was quiet for a long time. Is that what you want? For me to go? What I want doesn't matter. What matters is what's best for you. And you think what's best for me is to leave? I think what's best is for you to have choices. Not to feel trapped with a man who can't offer you anything but running. She turned to face him, her eyes blazing. You think I stayed because I was trapped? You think I kissed you because I had no choice? I think you stayed because you were hurt and alone and I was the only option. The slap cracked through the quiet air. How dare you? She whispered, her voice shaking with fury. How dare you decide what I feel, what I want? He touched his cheek, tasting blood. Ayana, You listen now, she interrupted. I have had choices, Nathaniel. White traders have offered me marriage. Warriors from 3 tribes have courted me. I chose none of them. I chose you. Not because I was trapped, but because my heart recognized something in you it had never found anywhere else. But I'm nobody. Just a failed prospector. You are the man who held me when I burned with fever. You are the man who faced 5 soldiers to protect me. You are the man who brought me to this sacred place. She knelt beside him, taking his face in her hands. You are my chosen one, and I am yours. Not because we have no other choice, but because we choose each other. When she kissed him this time, it was a claiming, a declaration. They made love beside the sacred spring as the stars wheeled overhead. 2 virgins discovering what it meant to join not just bodies, but spirits. He had never felt anything like it. This complete surrender of self. This moment when 2 broken halves became whole. They spent 3 days in the hidden valley, a honeymoon of sorts, bound by something deeper than any law. On the 4th morning, fresh snow was falling. It was time to move again. They were following a game trail when Nathaniel spotted the smoke. A thin column rising from the valley below. Someone else was out here. It wasn't soldiers. It wasn't trappers. It was the sound of children laughing that made their decision. They approached carefully. 3 makeshift shelters were built against a cliff face. It was a family group. 2 men, 3 women, 5 children. All Cheyenne. All survivors of the attack on Ayana's village. Among them was a man near Nathaniel's age, Grey Wolf. He had once courted Ayana. The way he looked at her, and then at Nathaniel, made it clear his feelings hadn't died. She was promised to me, Grey Wolf said that night around the fire. Her father agreed before the soldiers came. Nathaniel felt a cold knot in his stomach. He looked at Ayana. Many things were promised before the soldiers came, she said quietly. Many promises died with the village. Some promises survive, Grey Wolf pressed. She has chosen her path, Nathaniel said. She chooses to stay with me. Grey Wolf's laugh was harsh. Chosen or been taken. I have seen what white men call choice. Grey Wolf, Ayana's voice was sharp. You will not dishonor me by suggesting I don't know my own heart. Your heart may know, but does your mind? This man, what can he offer you? He cannot take you to his people. He cannot bring you to ours. We have no home left. I can offer her my life, Nathaniel said. My protection, my love. Love, Grey Wolf spat. White man's love burns quick and dies young. What then? Will you still love her when she bears you children who belong to neither world? The words cut deep, giving voice to Nathaniel's own fears. But when he looked at Ayana, at the absolute trust in her eyes, the fears seemed small. I'll love her until my last breath, he said, and beyond. The crisis came a week later. Scouts reported a large cavalry patrol moving through the lower valleys, a systematic search. We have to scatter, the elder of the group declared. There is another way, Grey Wolf said. One of us could draw the soldiers away. A suicide mission. I'll do it, Nathaniel said immediately. No, Ayana's voice cut through the debate. You are not dying for my people. They're my people too, he said, and the words hung in the air. A new plan formed. Not sacrifice, but strategy. They would lead the soldiers into Devil's Garden, a maze of canyons where echoes made it impossible to determine direction. A death trap. As dawn approached, Nathaniel stood with Grey Wolf. This isn't your fight, Nathaniel said. It became my fight when I saw how she looks at you, Grey Wolf replied. I courted her for 2 summers, I never once saw her face light up the way it does when you walk into a room. She was never mine to lose, but she is yours to protect. The plan worked. They led the soldiers into the labyrinth. Each person took a different route, laying false trails. The soldiers' shouts and curses grew fainter, lost in the stone maze. How long before they find their way out? Nathaniel asked. Days, Ayanna said with satisfaction. Maybe weeks. They were free, at least for now. But their real journey was just beginning. They had to figure out how to build a life in a world that insisted their love was impossible. That night, Ayanna took his hand in the darkness. Tomorrow, we start building our future, she said. Not the future others expect, but the one we choose. He squeezed her fingers. Whatever came next, they would face it together. My chosen one, he whispered. Always, she promised, until the stars fall from the sky. If you were moved by Nathaniel and Ayanna's story of survival and love against all odds, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss our next tale from the untamed heart of the American West.